YouTube user 4WD Adventures asked a couple of different questions. Why is the keymaker called the keymaker? Well, he's not. He's called the keykeeper. I touched on this kind of earlier in a response to Weasel2HTM. A lot of people seem to think that the keykeeper reference is something to do with the Matrix series of films, and I have since learned that Weasel2HTM has not actually ever seen the Matrix series of films. Well, the idea behind the keykeeper's name is that he has all the keys for our vehicles and he can usually produce them on demand. He also has keys for some other stuff, and it seemed like a good idea at the time to run with it in the video. The name actually takes it's sourced from an old Gateway 2000 computer advertisement. Let's see here. Macintosh user 1986 asks, Mac or PC? Seriously, which do you prefer? I don't have a real hard and fast preference. I use the computer that gets the work done depending on what I'm doing. Now this is another one of those usernames that I can't guarantee that I'm pronouncing correctly, but YouTube user bamdadkhan asks, please do a little compilation of your computing background. Well, my computing background actually starts with my dad's Apple II Plus computer. All I ever did on that machine, because I was very young at the time, was I played the old Scholastic WizWare software games and things like Dave's Midnight Magic Pinball and stuff like that. Now leave a comment if you remember any of those programs, but some of those Scholastic WizWare programs were really well done, and I kind of wish I still had them, but they ended up going to my mother's sister, and I don't know if she still got them or not. Frankly, I'd be a little bit surprised. From there, when my grandmother moved out of her house and moved here into town into a smaller house, she gave me her old K-Pro professional computer and the moderately long persistence Samsung monochrome CGA, and yes, I know that's a contradiction in terms, monitor. That thing had a couple of neat pieces of software on it. It had the MicroPro Easy Word processor and also had a copy of Swift Paint and DOS 3.3. There are a couple other programs here and there that I never really did much with. But after my grandmother gave me that computer, because she never had much luck using it and the screen was hard for her to read, that machine became my world. I did a lot of stuff on that machine. That was when I was about a second grader. I loved that machine. It disappeared in a basement flood in 1994, a couple of years later, and it was gone. So my computing background starts out largely on the PC and DOS platform. There are a couple of Macintoshes along the way. There was the Apple II Plus, of course, and never anything really to do with Unix. I wasn't exposed to Unix very much at all. So that's about all I can say about my computing background. These days, I do have things like a Unix workstation. I have an IBM RS6000 7012 397 machine, but it's not my main computer. YouTube user ShroomishGaming says, hey, I've been wondering about an old video. You said you had a bee-infested BMW. Well, here's the thing. The BMW is not my car. It's not any. It is in the family, but it's not my car, and it's not anything that I have any direct control over. I'm not sure exactly what kind of BMW it is, but I know it dates from the mid-'80s, and it's got a little 4-cylinder gasoline engine in it, and I think a 5-speed manual transmission, but don't quote me on that. The car has an electrical problem and a broken window. It belongs to an uncle of mine, and I don't think he's ever going to do anything with it. It's sitting out there on one of the farms. It is absolutely full of bees, which was something that I discovered when I opened the hood on it one day, and after a while I started hearing this faint buzzing from the engine, and I was like, what could be making that noise? The battery's not hooked up, and even if it was, it'd probably be dead. Lo and behold, bees! I ran back to my truck as fast as I could. I got in there, and the bees were flying around my truck, so I just kind of drove off and came back later, and I've never touched that car again since. Probably don't intend to. YouTube user crissescore, and I hope that I'm pronouncing that properly, asks, how many PCs and Macs do you have? That's a popular question. The answer is way too many to count, and I'm not really interested in doing that. Del0304 apparently has a sense of humor and asks, why is the world round? To which I say, well, there's probably a good technical reason why the world is round, but in the UXWBill Smarty Pants School of Answers to Questions, I have decided that the best answer is because it's not flat. So let's see, what other questions do we have here? YouTube user BlazerLover25 asked a couple of questions. On my profile, it says I'm not interested in relationships. Well, that's correct. I really think that I'm far too independently minded and too desirous of doing my own thing to be interested in a relationship. I'm not particularly into women. I've never been arrested for anything at all. I'm not sure where that question comes from. I do IT work for a living, and I do freelance computer consulting. I actually joined YouTube because of YouTube user David's Farm. I was intrigued by the videos that he made, and it picked up my interest. I have lots of stuff on VHS videotape from a long, long time ago that I used to go around with this battery-operated RCA camcorder and make movies about anything that struck my fancy. I have a ton of tapes, lots of stuff on VHS, and maybe even some of it's good enough to post here, but I still don't have my specially built PC-based video capture machine up and going to actually do that, and it's not a real high priority. So that's all the questions from BlazerLover25, who closes things up with, do I drink beer? No, I don't drink. I never have, other than very, very occasionally, and usually only because some alcoholic beverage of some kind was out, and I sampled a little bit of it, which is how I came to learn that I really don't care for beer. And while the 30% alcohol by volume limoncello was not at all bad, that seems like a way to go on the whiskey diet. And do you know what happens when you go on the whiskey diet? Well, I don't, but I've heard that people lose 3 days and don't even know it. YouTube user TheBeefqueen says, you are very kind, honest, and perceptive. Well, here's the disclaimer time. TheBeefqueen, YouTube user TheBeefqueen, is my mother. And so I love her dearly, but her comments are somewhat biased. She says that I know you are passionate about electronics. If you could live anywhere and do any job, where and what would it be? Well, I've kind of thought about that question over time, and I suppose that if I could live anywhere, well, how about Canada, eh? I think that I'd like to at least tour Canada sometime, and I've given some thought, you know, if somebody came to me tomorrow and said, you know, we'll pay your way to live wherever in the world you want to, I would give very serious thought to moving to Canada, just because I think it's a beautiful country, and it seems like there's a lot of really nice people up there. The other place that I might like to live or even visit would be the state of Alaska, the reason being that I'm very intrigued by the concept of the midnight sun. As far as any job that I could do, well, I like a job with a lot of variety, and the jobs that I do now, you know, both for my own, you know, freelance gain and as a professional, you know, real job, pays the bills kind of a thing, both of those jobs have a lot of variety. In fact, as I'm making this video, I haven't been home more than about an hour since I was grubbing around in an ice machine with a refrigerant leak at a restaurant, and basically I ended up trading the guy dinner for that. So, you know, any job that I would have, I would definitely want it to have a lot of variety, not to be doing the same old thing all the time. This next question comes from YouTube user TJR493, who asks, are you a Christian? Well, let me put it to you this way. Like I've said earlier, around the time that I was asked the President Obama question, I don't typically discuss religion and politics with people because it's just a good way to make them mad. And I don't, you know, I accept a lot of wide viewpoints. There's people from all walks of life watch this channel, people with interesting views that differ from my own, and it's not my intention to make any of them mad. That said, that's how I was brought up, but I'm definitely a backslider extraordinaire, and I'm not real big on organized religion. I am a relatively faithful person. I don't know what is out there for me, you know, at the end of my life, what there may be. I can't prove that there is one deity or several or anything like that. But in general, I do have faith, and I do believe that there are things we can't explain, at least not with our limited senses and our limited perception. But that's about all I'm going to say about that, because I know that there are other people out there who have very different beliefs, some of whom I'm very friendly with here on YouTube, and I don't want to make any of them mad if my beliefs run counter to theirs. So that's the best way that I can answer that question. YouTube user thepaashaas, and I hope that I am pronouncing that properly, Asks, how many computers do you have altogether? Again, lots of them. No idea, no real desire to count them because they are all over the place. YouTube user onetoughtechie asks, how old are you? I'm 28 years old at the time of making this video. The age on my channel information page is accurate. How long has my family owned the farm for? Well, the family farms have been around for a long time. In fact, some of them are getting close, and will be within my lifetime, centennial farms. I don't know exactly how long they've been, but I know my grandparents were the ones who directed the family into farming, and they bought those farms a long, long time ago. So that's the story behind that. It's easily been well over 50 years since they bought the farms. Do I think Toshiba makes good laptops? Well, yes and no. I do think that Toshiba makes good equipment, but I was burned by a Toshiba E740 Windows CE PDA that absolutely wasn't right. And so the likelihood of my buying or recommending a Toshiba product is really quite low.